Hello, everybody. So that's second part. Goa dancing with the speakers. A little summary of my story in India. The last part we finished when I arrived from Panjim Airport, and the first place I stopped was in Kalangut, where I got a room near the bus station. I stayed there for a couple of weeks, but soon realized that this was not the place to be for longer, as too many Indian tourists, especially Indian men, crowded the beach on the search for sparely dressed white female tourists. Also, the real hippie scene was further north in Anjuna and Vagator. Having rented a 350 cubic cc Royal Enfield bike, I started to get to know the place. There was only one petrol station in Kalangut on the road to the beach, near where another road turned right to Baga, which already then was a posh commercialized Shikaria beach of Goa. It was probably at the flea market in Anjuna, held every Wednesday afternoon, where I met Angie again and got a bit more input about where to go in terms of beaches, food, drinks, and above all, parties. The scene in Vagator was much more to my liking, as that was the place where the real hippies stayed, lived, hung out on the beach, and had the best parties. Here and there, I got to know the first people. No matter what time of the day or night, smoking dope was the one thing never missing. Two guys I remember who had their lodging in Kalangut invited me for my first smack cigarette. And we used to hang out on a huge sand dune just about 100 yards away from the end of Kalangut Beach Road, right along the beach. A single palm tree crowned the dune, and we spent hours lying there, stoned out of our faces, lapping up the warm nights, with the never-ending waves crashing on the beach and the most spectacular sky with innumerable stars above us. One night, I remember realizing how the star sign Orion was moving in all its beauty, hanging just above the sea from the left side of the palm tree branches to the right side thereof. And thus I realized how our planet was rotating in majestic calmness through the universe. I also realized that I had plunged rather quickly into a dodgy habit of desiring the artificial feel-good experience of smack, knowing fine well that something was quite wrong here. Every time I took it, I had to vomit soon after. But the drug had already its soothing effect, and even the vomiting didn't bother me anymore. Luckily, I found new accommodation after a month or so, directly in Vagator, near the beach, and those smack nights stopped without me even noticing it. One thing I missed from Kalangut was a Buffalo Milk bar somewhere near the road between Kalangut and Baga. It was in the middle of nowhere, a little shack and a few raw-built wooden tables and seats on the sandy ground. But the best milkshakes in the world, fresh, creamy water buffalo milk and fresh fruit, whatever you desired. People came from far to enjoy this delicacy. The rent for the Enfield bike ran out, but now I was in the place where I wanted to be, Vagator, the place of all places. Jeffrey's house was on a quite dead-end dirt road leading towards the beach, but stopping shortly after our houses. From then on, only a little walking path led directly down the hill to the beach between Little and Big Vagator. It was a perfect location, but I had to get used to the fact that Jeffrey and his family lived just meters beside my room, and there was no running water, only a typical Goan toilet of those days, a small stone cube where you would enter from the one side and relieve yourself over a stone slope, and the local pigs would have access from the other side, anxiously waiting for fresh food. Shower was outside my room, a couple of palm leaves giving shelter, and a big bucket of water as reservoir, and a small one bucket to rinse yourself. It seemed primitive, but even at night the temperatures were perfect, and the showers underneath a dazzling star sky were the best ones I had in my life. Although I didn't feel entirely private, living so close to fisherman Jeffrey's family, I was told that this house was safe from theft, as none of the local crooks would dare to touch a local's house. In the morning, I was able to walk down to the beach and so you enjoy the beauty and tranquility of Vagator Beach Hills. No people, no cars, just palm trees, the beach, and the odd grazing cow. There were several shacks on the beach which provided breakfast, lunch, or dinner. But most importantly, shade from the blazing sun and cold shakes or lassies which made the heat bearable. Not to forget the perfect supply of apple and banana pies, which a wee Indian chap made for the hippies whenever he found time in between playing beach ball without end. Life was sunny, relaxed, and yet exciting. Slowly, I got to know the scene, places where to go, like Hilltop Coffee Shop or Primrose for a bit to eat, and then to Shapura, where all the life centered around the banyan tree and the tiny juice milkshake shop, which turned out endless shakes and lassies for a never-ending flow of hippies arriving on bikes. Having a quick drink, a chat, and going off to either visit friends or go straight to a party. Here it was where I found out the next party met people from the afternoon or from the beach. Small shops, bars, restaurants, and ultra-cool boutiques set the background. At some point of the night, the smell of freshly baked bread filled the air as a bakery was just a stone's throw away from the crazy hippie hangout joint around the banyan tree. I can't remember which was my first party or where it was, but I remember the first party I experienced being high on acid. Claudia, a German girl whom I had got to know, warned me of getting LSD trips from unknown sources. She had white Berliners, which were supposed to be safe and powerful, and indeed they were. Going Michael was DJing, and the sound was just awesome. Under the palm trees of Vagator Beach, he had his little desk with a double tape deck and an old rundown amp, but the sound he played was unbelievable. During the night, you could hardly see anything, as there were only some strings of miniature lights spun over the sandy dance board and a fluorescent UV light, which highlighted fluorescent paintings on the tree trunks and rocks. The speakers were primitive wooden boxes painted black, placed on tables to get the right height. A primitive generator, usually supervised by a couple of Guanese boys who earned a few rupees, was rattling away 100 yards from the party. The party had started around midnight, but towards the dawning of the morning, the best songs were yet to come. Pete Shelley's Telephone Operator was blasting away. Laid Back's Abu Dhabi was Making You Fly. But the ultimate song of the night and the morning was Gunsmoke from the Dodgers. Never heard music like that, never danced like that, never enjoyed life as intensive as then. Never experienced nature around us that beautiful. Everybody was high, spaced out dancing in the dust, lapping up the raging dance tracks. Law, order, any type of normality had vanished, and the place turned into a melting pot of drug-induced emotions, experiences, and raving dance actions. If rock or techno music was ever the symbol of freedom, rebellion against the stereotype commercial society, it found its peak of expression here in Goa at such a party. The sun started to rise and the powerhouse was flooded into the most beautiful colors of the morning sky. The green of the palm trees and the mighty noise of the nearby sea waves. Chai ladies offered last cups of tea to worn-out freaks. People went down to the water to cool down in the waves. The speakers were finally silenced at 10 a.m., but the sound was going on in my ears for virtually hours. Not even the best club DJs in Munich had a clue about this kind of dance music. Now I knew why Stephanie was raving on about the Goa parties. There was probably no other place in the world where you could party so wild, so powerful, so free, with such extraordinary sound as this, embedded into a mind-blowing scenery of palm trees, beaches, old charming Portuguese houses, sweet smells of flowers and herbs surrounding you with a perfectly warm, sunny air. You hardly saw any normal clothing. Everybody wore individual stuff, colorful, suitable, and cool. And the bikes the hippies drove on spotted, ridiculed any explanation. Old, powerful 350 Royal Enfields with individual designs, stripped to the very basics, dust covered but roaring like Harleys. That was it. I knew I had found what I was looking for. Goa was like a Mickey Mouse paradise island with hippies setting the scene and the standards. Colors, drugs, love, fun, sound, freedom, leisurely enjoying the days as they came. No pressure, no work, no rigid society with rules and regulations. No stress, no weekly or daily routine or chores. As long as you had some cash and didn't get busted by the cops, who rarely showed their faces, life was a dream. I was instantly hooked to the Goa sound, and from then on, parties were the main events which shaped the week, usually 2 to 3 per week. I was very keen to get to know Michael, the Goan DJ, as I had no clue as to where he had got this music from. The effects of the LSD trip had surely emphasized the sound, but still, this music was better than anything I knew from Europe. The main event to structure the week was the Wednesday flea market in Anjuna, just behind the beach. A couple of Indians were running drink and food shops, as well as Indian clothes, jewelry, etc. But the majority of shops was run by hippies, who sometimes had just put a blanket down where they would offer their either imported batik clothes from Bali, absolute unique stuff, or self-produced items, or simply personal stuff, which needed to be turned into cash to survive the next weeks. Shillums were smoked everywhere, and for the hippies, it was more of a gathering, a chat exchange point than buying or selling. When the sun started to go low on the seawater horizon, it was time to pack up. There I was when I met Angie again, whom I got to know already in the jumbo jet on the way to Bombay. She told me a few bits and pieces about the scene, as to who to watch out for and who was okay. It was also at the flea market where I saw Franco and his friend, whatever his name was, talking compassionately about a topic unknown to me. Franco was all cool. He was Italian, but had dreadlocks like the Rastafarian guys. Brown suntan like the Indians, and the apparent composure like an Indian guru or chief. It was him whom Stephanie had got to know a year ago and fallen in love with. He was the cool dude who had lived in Senegal for several years, coming from Rome, but despising the high society lifestyle there. He was into yoga, Eastern philosophy, jungle life, dope, girls, and techno. But the most charismatic personality amidst all the hippies was Maki, son of an Italian high official, dreadlocks, sometimes bandages of bike accidents around his head, always joking, always doped up, funny with a strong Italian accent in his English conversations and gesticulations. At times he wore the captain's hat, which fitted perfectly his image of being the unspoken boss of the scene. Always with him little Paulino and Ute, the utterly cool German big lady who has seen everything, taken everything, known everything. I couldn't believe it. When Stephanie turned up in Goa, she had Mike, her long-term lover, with her. Indeed, although she was looking forward to meeting Franco again. Mike, the crazy, good-looking Jamaican alky, had lost lots of his appearance. I was used to in Munich. There he was, the king in Munich night scene, a dangerous guy, always ready for a fight. If someone came too close to Stephanie, or if he simply had too much beer in the system. But here in Goa, he seemed to not get the hang of it, couldn't adapt, felt almost insecure. It was not his scene, and he seemed to not like the psychedelic drugs so prevalent here. One evening, Stephanie got invitations for one of the poshest parties ever held in Goa. It was Tiki's birthday, if I remember the name right. Surely it was in the Shikaria area of Baga. But not only that, it was also absolutely private with a big palm leaf fence around the venue and sharply controlled entrance. Everybody important arrived styled up midnight, by midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and the party took off. For sure, they had the big set of speakers, and the sound was blasting out as ever. Around the dance floor were these beautiful arranged stalls with all sorts of food, whole banana trunks with maybe 100 bananas hanging everywhere. And then there were these big Indian mums, ladies, who would take care of some huge clay pot where all the guests could come and get a glass of acid punch, fairly diluted, mixed perfectly with fresh fruit juice. So you could come back till you were totally out of your face. Never did I hear Tina Turner better than at this party when her One for the Living song extended 12-inch mix was raging out of the speakers at maximum volume, accompanied by the rising of the sun. Then at some point the birthday cake was presented. It was the biggest and best cake ever eaten by man. It was at least a meter long by half a meter wide and about 3 inches thick, but of such moist, fine, creamy, and fruity taste and complexion, words fail to describe the effect it had on our taste buds. Even at this crazy party, nobody managed to get more than what was due to him. The pieces were counted and handed out with painstaking strictness, so everybody would get a piece. Then somebody came along with a cardboard box full of dozens of tiny, cute chickens, just a couple of days old, yellow and hyper, jumping out of the box and running around the dance floor trying to escape the madness. People loved them. The sun had risen behind the palm trees for another fine hot day. The waves were crashing on the beach just meters away from the speakers. When I witnessed an interesting argument of thought. Stephanie still had a glass of acid punch left and was tempted to down it, but was also aware that this could be the one glass which would or could break the camel's back and drive us into insanity. Yet she was tempted to top up the LSD trip. But then, in a sudden moment of reason, she poured the acid punch into the sand before I could stop her. Now I'm not tempted anymore, and maybe it's better so, she just stated. She possibly was right. Mike didn't enjoy himself, so Stephanie went back with him to Germany, as she kind of felt responsible for him, having brought him to Goa in the first place. I knew she would see Franco again at a later moment when he came to Germany, but that didn't go well either. He felt like an exotic cat amidst all these straight Germans, and even his hero status suffered somewhat in Stephanie's eyes. Anyway, I stayed in Goa for another month or so, getting to know more and more people. I loved Dieter. He was so down to earth, trustworthy, and funny. Effie and Gerald, friends of Angie, were cool. One night, a party took place in an old Portuguese house ruin, painted all over with fluorescent colors in the middle of Vagator. It took me a while to find it at night, as there were no streetlights and the dirt roads were hardly visible. Only the sound showed where to go. As far as I remember, they played SPK there, which had this incredible reverb echo sound. Shivers of emotion came over me, and this unique mixture of sound, nature, dust, fluoro light, and partying hippies gave me nothing less than Weltschmerz, a combination of melancholy and euphoria. Talking about euphoria, that was one of Laurent's songs which might have come during the night, giving the right kick to everybody. We were flying.